sea was calm. The weather wasn't extreme. There was no explosion, no iceberg, no storm tearing the ship apart. And that's what makes this story so disturbing. Because on the morning of April 16, 2014, a modern passenger ferry carrying 476 people, including hundreds of high school students, began to sink in conditions that should not have killed anyone. But 304 people died, most of them children. And the worst part? Many of them were told to stay where they were. This is not just the story of a ship that sank. It's the story of what happens when a vessel becomes unstable, when leadership breaks down, and when a disaster unfolds slowly enough for people to realize they are trapped inside it. The MV Sewol was on a routine overnight trip from Incheon to Jeju Island, one of South Korea's most popular tourist destinations. On board were 476 people. Among them were 325 students from Danwon High School, traveling on a field trip. By the end of that morning, only 172 people would survive. And even now, more than a decade later, the disaster still haunts South Korea. Not only because of the death toll, but because investigators found that this tragedy wasn't caused by one single freak event. It was a chain of bad decisions, some made long before the ship ever left port. That's part of what makes the Sewol story so unsettling. This wasn't some ancient vessel barely held together with rust and luck. It was a modern ferry built in Japan in 1994, later purchased and modified for service in South Korea. And those modifications matter, because after the ship was bought, extra passenger cabins were added to increase capacity. That made the vessel heavier up top, more top-heavy, less forgiving. On paper, it still passed inspection. In reality, investigators later found that the ship's redesign had made it more vulnerable. And that vulnerability got worse because the ferry was also being routinely overloaded. According to AP, in the 13 months before it sank, Sewol exceeded its cargo limit on 246 trips, nearly every voyage for which cargo was reported. So by the time Sewol pulled away on its final journey, the danger wasn't visible. It was built into the ship itself. On the morning of April 16, 2014, the ferry was nearing the end of its route when everything changed in less than a minute. Officials said the ship made a sharp turn between 8:48 and 8:49 a.m. It was a routine part of the route, but something went wrong. Investigators would later focus on a deadly combination: an unstable, top-heavy ferry, overloaded with cargo, carrying too little ballast water, and cargo that may not have been properly secured. The result was catastrophic. As the ship turned, the load shifted, the vessel began to list. And once a ferry like Sewol starts leaning beyond recovery, every second matters. The terrifying thing is that there was no dramatic Hollywood moment here, no giant wave, no collision anyone could point to and say, that was it. Just a ship in relatively calm water, suddenly rolling into a disaster it could not reverse. And this is where the Sewol disaster stops being only a maritime failure and becomes something even harder to accept. Because passengers were not immediately told to get out. According to AP, after the distress call was made, the first instructions from the captain were for passengers to put on life jackets and stay where they were. Survivors later said many students remained in their cabins, waiting for further instructions. Think about that. The ship is already listing. The angle is getting worse. People can feel the deck tilting beneath them, and they are being told to stay put. AP also reported that a South Korean transportation official told the ship around 9 a.m. to prepare for evacuation. But the captain's evacuation order came roughly half an hour later. Half an hour, on a vessel that was actively capsizing. By then, crew members said the slope had become so extreme that moving through the ship was nearly impossible. Lifeboats also became harder, and in some cases impossible, to deploy effectively. That delay is the emotional center of this story, because many of the people who died were not ignoring instructions, they were following them. Try to imagine what that felt like from inside. At first, maybe it's confusing. You feel the floor tilt a little, then more. Objects begin sliding. Walls stop feeling vertical. Doors no longer open the way they should. Then the tilt gets steeper. The exits that made sense a few minutes ago no longer do. The hallway becomes a slope, then a climb. Then, for some people, a dead end. One surviving student later described waiting as water came in, wearing a life vest, trying to escape upward through what had become the only reachable opening. That's the horror of Sewol. It wasn't a ship that disappeared instantly with no warning. It gave people just enough time to understand that they were in danger, and for many of them, by the time the truth became obvious, the ship had already become a prison. And then comes the part that made the tragedy feel unforgivable. Out of 29 crew members, 20 survived, including the captain. Meanwhile, most of the dead were passengers, especially students. Reuters reported that the Sewol disaster killed 304 people, and the 250 of them were children on a school trip. AP reported 325 Danwon High School students were on board. That contrast is impossible to ignore. The people in charge got out. The people told to stay inside did not. That's why the Sewol sinking hit South Korea so hard. This was not just a tragic accident at sea. It felt like a total collapse of responsibility. The ship failed. The emergency response failed, and the adults who were supposed to protect those students failed them too. So what actually sank Sewol? Not one thing. That's what makes this case so important. Investigations pointed to illegal or destabilizing modifications, chronic overloading, too little ballast water, and cargo that likely shifted during the turn. Reuters summarized the core findings this way. The vessel had been altered to increase passenger capacity, making it top-heavy and unstable, while excess cargo and insufficient ballast made the final turn deadly. Safety 4C, summarizing investigators' findings, reported that Sewol was carrying an estimated 2,142.7 tons of cargo, more than 3 times the 987-ton limit, while carrying only about 580 tons of ballast water instead of the much higher recommended amount. In other words, the ferry was operating with less stability than it should have had, more weight than it should have carried, and less margin for error than anyone on board understood. Then, when the crisis began, the response made it worse. This is the kind of disaster that tells you something uncomfortable about modern systems. They don't always fail because of one giant mistake. Sometimes they fail because dozens of smaller compromises are allowed to pile up until one normal morning becomes a mass casualty event. The sinking of Sewol did more than kill 304 people. It shattered public trust. Reuters, marking the 10th anniversary in 2024, reported that families still sought answers and accountability. The disaster remained a national wound, especially because so many of the victims were children and because the conduct of the captain and crew became a symbol of abandonment. This was not a story people could move on from easily. It was too public, too preventable, too painful. And maybe that's because Sewol didn't just expose the weakness of a ship, it exposed the weakness of the systems around it. regulation, oversight, emergency judgment, and the instinct to protect human life when the rules of normal life suddenly stop applying. The MV Sewol sank in calm water. That phrase should be impossible. It should sound wrong, like something modern engineering, modern regulation, and modern leadership would never allow. But that's exactly why this story stays with people. Because the sea did not have to become violent for this to happen. Human decisions were enough. The ship was made more fragile. The cargo load was pushed too far. The warning signs were ignored. And when the moment came to save lives, too many people were told to wait. And for 304 people, waiting was fatal. If you want more stories like this, the disasters that look simple on the surface but get darker the deeper you go, subscribe. Because on this channel, we don't just tell the story of what sank, we break down why it failed, what people got wrong, and why some tragedies still refuse to let history move on. And in the next video, we're looking at another ship disaster where the real cause wasn't what people first believed.